Boleh dimulai aja, Mas Bimo.
Start?
Iya, start aja. Udah lewat 2 menit.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, selamat malam. Welcome to today's prank session by PMI Indonesia chapter. My name is Bimo, and today I will be moderating this prank session. If this is the first time you are joining the pranks event, we Project Management Institute chapter Indonesia would like to welcome you, and thank you very much for joining our session pranks today. Pranks is project management knowledge sharing, and today we'll have Pak Franklin Kurniawan as our speaker. Today's session is about digital transformation in manufacturing. In a brief introduction about Franklin, before we start the session, Franklin is co-founder and CEO of OPEC Consulting Group, and he graduated from Bandung Institute of Technology, ITB, as mechanical engineer, and he obtained Master of Science in National University of Singapore. He also have a Six Sigma Black Belt holder, and he has worked and taken leadership position in various multinational companies, including Quantum's, Panasonic, Perkin-Elmer, Siemens, and Dyson, across Southeast Asia, in Indonesia, Philippines, and Singapore. Franklin is experienced in factory management and operational excellence, and he has in-depth experience and knowledge in Industry 4.0 technologies such as ERP, MES, IoT, and RPA. And Franklin is the co-founder and CEO of OPEC Consulting Group, an end-to-end digital transformation solution provider operating in Singapore and Indonesia. And Franklin is joining us from Singapore today evening. Before we start our session, I would like to bring to your attention our basic rule. Number one is our participant will be on mute and video will be turned off. And number two, if you have question, please submit your question in the chat box and put Q marks before your question so that we can easily look for it. And third one, the session will be recorded, so you can look back into the session in the YouTube. Number four, the e-certificate will be distributed to all participants who join the session, and exclusive for PMI Indonesia chapter. Auto submission video will be provided. Number six, you can also join via our YouTube channel. If you are logged off from the Zoom and you cannot log in, please join through the YouTube channel. And number seven, enjoy the session and give us your valuable feedback. Okay, I will give the control to Franklin. Franklin, please start the session.
All right, thank you Bimo, and good evening everybody, and selamat malam untuk rekan-rekan di Indonesia. So again, my name is Franklin. I'm Indonesian by citizen, but at the moment, out of the past, I would say about 14-15 years, I've been living in Singapore with a family. But I was telling Bimo and David that about a year ago, or until a year ago, I spent half of my time in Indonesia, particularly in Jakarta or Jabodetabek area, in Batam, and in various cities in Indonesia. But so let me bring up my slide. I hope everybody can see my slide. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let me just do a couple of things here. Okay. So yeah, so thank you very much for Bimo and for PMI Indonesia chapter for inviting me to speak on digital transformation in manufacturing. I think even before COVID-19 pandemic, digital transformation is definitely one of the topic that is everybody is talking about it. Industry 4.0, everybody is talking about it globally, not only in Indonesia but globally, and definitely the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the whole digital transformation, the whole activities around digital transformation. Everybody is talking more and more about it. So tonight we'll touch digital transformation. I'm aware that a lot of you may not come from manufacturing sector. You are in non-manufacturing, whether in mining or in construction or oil and gas or financial sector and so on and so forth. But I think some of the principles or the approach around digital transformation in manufacturing is also applicable to different sectors in the non-manufacturing area. So so when let me just do something here. Okay, oops. Okay. I hope everybody can see this. Please let me know if the screen doesn't move or you cannot hear me. Please call my handphone if you don't hear me, because there was a case a few months ago in Singapore where an NUS lecturer gave lecture for about 2 hours, and then after 2 hours he just realized that his voice cannot be heard, and then he was talking to himself, right? And he cannot be reached because his mobile phone wasn't around, but I have my mobile phone here. So if you cannot hear me, or I'm not responding, or you cannot hear, or you cannot see the slides, please let me know. So basically, this is a little bit about me. Thanks to Bimo, who already introduced me just now. Basically, I started my career in manufacturing, and that was back in 1994. And I've been in manufacturing all my life, so for more than 25 years already in manufacturing. And I started my career in Batam. That was back in 1994 in a company called Quantum. It was basically a data storage company or factory. I started there, and then I moved to another company after 5 years later, and then the company moved me to Singapore for 2 years, and then I was posted to the Philippines for another 3 years before I came back with the family in 2006. So since 2006, I've been with my family in Singapore. We live in Singapore. So my passion basically has been in manufacturing, has been in operational excellence, Lean Six Sigma. Some of you I think are familiar with Lean Six Sigma, and definitely around Industry 4.0, digital transformation, and not to forget also about the importance of people and organizational development. So that's what basically what I've been doing, and that's my profession at the moment. And a little bit of my family. I got 2 boys. They are not small boys. They are quite big now. They are 22 and 17 years old now. One is in university, and the other one is in high school. So without further ado, maybe let me do the introduction also about OPEX Consulting Group, what we do. Basically, our background, as mentioned earlier, is in operational excellence. We are basically practitioners of operational excellence. We work in manufacturing. So we set up in 2017 in Singapore as well as in Jakarta. In the same year, we set up an office and team in these 2 countries. And basically what we are trying to do is to help our clients grow their business by improving productivity and profitability. And of course, using the methodology that we are very familiar with, is a very tested and proven methodology, namely Lean Six Sigma. And in this case, we also look into how we can implement a comprehensive range of integrated technology solutions. So since we were manufacturing, we wanted to see how we can provide end-to-end digital transformation service to our clients. And most of our clients came from manufacturing background. Some is automotive, some is medical device, a little bit of oil and gas. There was aerospace, like Singapore Airlines in Singapore last year was our customer as well. Some is making full product, some is doing discrete components, whether it's metal component, plastic component, and so on and so forth. We have some customers also that are in the food and beverage, F&B sector as well. So it varies a lot. So from different industry verticals, and I think that's what is exciting to see, that the whole digital transformation is not only in for certain industry, but it's actually all over the place, and again is in manufacturing as well as in non-manufacturing. So basically, there are 2 things that we do. The first one is training and consultancy, and this is where we really again use the foundation of Lean Six Sigma to eliminate waste, to reduce variation. And the reason why we do this is that we think that when we implement Industry 4.0 technologies, it is not talking about the technology itself, but we are talking about people. We are talking about business processes. Well, we need to revamp the business processes, right? We need to make it streamlined, more efficient, more productive, right? But on the people side also, we need to develop the people. We need to change the mindset. We need to improve the troubleshooting skill set, for example. And these two aspects are very important as we implement technology, as we do digital, or we embark on digital transformation. So we provide training on soft skill, on some hard skills, but not only that, we provide coaching, we provide consultancy, we walk the talk, we handhold our customers in enrolling their continuous improvement or operational excellence program. And at the end of the day, we look into these two aspects, improving the business processes and also the people side. Then comes the second, second division. This is on the technology solutions. We are basically looking into how to integrate the whole industry 4.0 technology solutions, right? So that is part and parcel of the digital transformation. So we work with a number of principles, right? So we can't do it alone, obviously, and we work with different principles, with different technologies, with different software, different solutions. You can see that Siemens, for example, is all over the place there. They have a lot of different products. We are into ERP. I'll talk a little bit about MES later on. In the RPA side, robotic process automations, we are partner of UiPath, and we are also partner with a number of different solutions. So basically, what we are looking at is that we are looking into how to provide values to our clients. So everybody, every company will have different pain points, right? So so normally what we do is we look into how to what are the pain points, what is the gap, right? What are the needs of the organizations, and from there we prescribe the technology or the solutions they need, and along with the people and process improvement that I mentioned just now, we provide essentially the end-to-end digital transformation service. So that's a little bit of me and a little bit of the company, OPEX Consulting Group. Feel free to ask me questions at the end of the session. We'll have the Q&A sessions later on. But let me just walk through what we are going to cover tonight. So we talk about some introductions. We'll talk about Industry 4.0 and digital transformation in a nutshell. We'll look into how digital transformation is actually a journey, and how do we start that? Where should I start? How do I make it successful? What are the critical items or factors to make a transformation successful? We'll talk about when is the good time to start, right? Is it now? Is it tomorrow? Is it yesterday, right? And then we'll pick up some of the examples that we see. Some is manufacturing, but I actually have another one actually in non-manufacturing, and we see how we can conclude, and I hope everybody can understand better what is digital transformation, especially in manufacturing, but also applicable to different industry verticals. So before we start, right, I would like to do a quick poll, and Bimo is going to help me on this. The question is that, which industry sector do you come from? Do you come from financial sector, oil and gas, mining, manufacturing, or where is it? Where do you come from? Okay, Bimo, you want to show the poll now?
Yes.
Okay, the poll is out there. So which industry background do you come from? So you pick one and then you submit. So it's very quick and easy poll. I hope everybody can participate. We'll show you the result later on.
We keep it open, Franklin, for some time.
Sure. I think, yeah, you can take a look whether there are responses or how many responses. I think it show up, right? But maybe we keep for another 30 seconds. Okay. If any of the sector is not there, you can just select the last one, which is others. Okay, I think that's enough time. Bimo, you want to show the result?
Okay.
Okay, interesting. So so a lot of you come from telecommunication and energy. Then next to that will be in manufacturing and IT, and eventually spread out between construction, consulting, none on mining. Okay, I thought there will be mining. Okay, and some from financial. Good. So we are quite kind of spread out, right? I think the highest is still in energy, I believe, 23%. Then comes telecommunication second, and from manufacturing the third, right? Good. Thank you, Bimo. So
Okay.
we got a diverse background, right? And again, I really hope that all of us we can learn today. We can learn together tonight what digital transformation is, and how you can look into how you can implement in your industry sector, whatever it is, and whatever you are doing at the moment. Okay, good. Sorry, my screen kind of freeze now. So there's always problem with technology, right? So this is one of the problem with technology. The screen freeze on me. Okay, let me try again. Okay, I hope you can see this. Do you see the comic, the cartoon?
Yes.
All right. So when we talk about digital transformation, right? Some companies or certain people may ask, okay, do I really need it, right? And this is not new. Again, when we talk about industry 4.0, for example, many years ago, 4-5 years ago, way before COVID, some companies really, well, I make money with this business. I don't use the digital solutions. I don't use the digitizing or digitalization, right? And I make money. Why do I need to invest in digital transformation? What is digital transformation? And I think I would need it maybe another 10 years from now, but not now, right? So that's the common notion you will find, right? But COVID-19 really changed a lot of things, right? And a lot of brick and mortar business is now gone, or is reducing or moving towards digital, right? So like it or not, COVID-19 pandemic actually accelerates the whole digital transformation, and not only accelerates, actually force a lot of companies to rethink about digital transformation. So it is really a digital age, and we can't run away with that. I think that's a conclusion I can draw based on what we've seen in the past 1 year, right? So when we talk about digital transformation, so a little bit of history about Industry 4.0, we need to touch that. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this. Industry 1.0 really talk about the steam engine and all the stuff, from horse to steam engine. That's really the start of the industry revolutions back in 19th century. And comes the mass production, the assembly line, the use of electricity, electrical energy. That is for the industry 2.0. 3.0 talks about computer or automations. So you can see that automation is really 3.0. It's not even 4.0. It's already started in 3.0, right? And 4.0 started from 2011 until now, and it will be keep on going. And that's not about automation only, but it's about connectivity, right? Interconnectivity, there's IoT, we're talking about cyber system, networks, artificial intelligence. So it's not a automation only, but automation is part of it, and it is part of the whole industry 4.0. There are many aspects of that, many technology of that, and that is what we are looking at, and how to integrate the whole solutions and have the interconnectivity. So that's essentially what industry 4.0 is. So when we talk about the whole digital transformation, there are actually different terms or terminologies that we have to be aware of, right? There's a physical, or the analog system. Then there's this term digitization, right? And then digitalization and digital transformation. So a lot of people actually confuse what is digitization and digitalization and digital transformation. So let's start with physical, right? What's physical? Well, it's basically analog signal. It's basically paper. You write some information in the paper, and then somebody has to key in the information or the numbers or the data to Excel spreadsheet or to key it into a ERP system, for example. So that's physical, right? It's analog, it's paper-based, right? That's the basic information gathering, right? The next step is you convert the data, the analog data, to digital, right? And this is digitization. Now, when we talk about digitization, I'm not talking about, for example, you have a handwritten document, right? And then you scan it, you turn it into PDF. That is not digitization, right? Digitization, that is electronic form of that handwritten document, but that is not digitization. Digitization is basically transforming or getting the data that is written in the paper, you key it in, or you have other ways of inputting the data into a system in a digital manner, right? So that's digitization. So again, a PDF file is not necessarily a digitization, right? So then next is digitalization. So what is that? So it's basically the use of digital information to enable or to improve the business processes, right? So companies have a standard operating procedure, they have processes, whether it's manufacturing or whether it's planning, whether it's finance processes, right? But the whole digitalization is the use of those digital information, digital technology to enable and improve the entire business processes. Then comes the next step, which is the digital transformation. And that is basically taking the whole digitalization technology in a structured way, in a coordinated way. And this is not only to improve the business processes, but it's also to transform the entire businesses. And it may be transforming in terms of a new business model, right? For example, like e-commerce, right? Instead of brick and mortar shop, but you are converting into e-commerce, right? That's one example of a digital transformation journey. And there are many other ways or examples in manufacturing and non-manufacturing as well. So that's basically a short explanation and the differences between digitalization, and digital transformation. All right, so when we look into digital transformation, it is a journey, right? So it's not a project of the month, it's not a project of the year, or it's not a project for the next 2 months, but it's going to be infinite journey, right? And again, when we talk about a journey, it involves not only the technology, but it involves also the business process. It involves also the people or the human capital, the ones that are doing it, the ones that are using it, right? So that's what is meant by digital transformation as a journey. So when we look into manufacturing, so I'm stepping into a little bit more into manufacturing, into factory. When we look into a manufacturing industry, there's a customer that that they want a certain product, they have a certain desire, and they want you to make the product, right? So there will be R&D department that will design the product. There will be manufacturing engineering will look into how to make the product, right? And then, of course, after that, they throw it to the production. The factory will make it, and then they will ship it. And then there will be a post-sales or after-sales service, right? So whether it's a car, for example, then there's always service for the car. So normally is one directional flow, from left to right, from customer desire all the way to service, right? And a lot of times when we look into the manufacturing, there is different departments involved. For example, there is a supply chain, or in Indonesia is called a PPIC, right? Production Planning and Inventory Control. There is a manufacturing engineering group. There is production department, right? and each of them will have their own SOP, their own system, and maybe even their own software, right, or system that they're going to use. But in reality, actually, a lot of these functions are disconnected, right? They are not integrated. By right, they should be integrated, but in reality, they are not fully integrated, or they are maybe totally disconnected, right? Then from there, you take a look and say, okay, maybe even the whole infrastructure in terms of the IT infrastructure is fragmented, is disconnected. You look into the business processes from one function to the other is also disconnected. So the mindset of the people are conventional. I've been doing this for 20 years. Why should I change, right? And then they'll say, okay, there are other things, or different functions are decoupled from each other, right? So overall, this becomes a problem for the company to grow, right? So the growth may be impeded because of all these issues that are very typically found in manufacturing. Now, the best is, of course, you want to turn those barriers, those hurdles into opportunity, right? Into how to turn it into growth, right? How to be enabler for your company to grow. And we're not talking about a one directional flow, right, from left to right, but it's actually there's a feedback, from one step to the other, from one function to the other. There's a closed loop system, there's closed loop feedback. You have integrated digital infrastructure, you have digital mindset, digitally oriented mindset. You have a logistic and a production that is connected, is flexible. You have modular production. You can service different product mix, for example, different volume, different mix of products. So the aim is really to turn all the barriers into enablers, right, for the manufacturing industries to grow, to be competitive. I'm not sure why this thing is probably, sorry for this thing here. I'm not sure why there's arrow there. Do you see the arrow? Well, I'm not sure why the arrow is there. Maybe something I did just now. Are you all still there?
Yeah, Franklin.
Okay. So I'm not sure what the arrow is. I'm trying to get rid of that. Maybe I'll. Yeah. Anyway. All right. So when we talk about manufacturing, right? There are several. Now we are zooming into a factory, for example, right? There are PLM, product lifecycle management, that manage the product design all the way to the end of life. There's ERP. A lot of you are familiar with ERP. There's MES, which is a manufacturing execution system in order to manage the shop floor, the factory at the shop floor level. That is then together with APS, advanced planning and production scheduling, advanced planning and scheduling. All this together will basically help a manufacturing factory to manage the shop floor better and then deliver to customers better. So in a nutshell, that is how it looks like for manufacturing industry from design to production, right? If you go to a little bit of more detail, and this is probably a little bit technical, there is actually a standard called ISA 95, right, that talks about connected enterprise, connected factory, right? So it divides actually the entire factory into several levels, right? The level 0 or the lowest level is all your machineries, right? Your machines. And then level 1 and level 2 basically talks about your control system. It can be your PLC, it can be your SCADA, your DCS, and all stuff. And I'll skip the level 3. I'll talk about that later on. But level 4, everybody is familiar, right? The ERP, right? There's for finance, for logistics, for planning, and all the stuff, right? And the level 3 is actually talking about MES, manufacturing execution system. And this is what I call as the missing link, right? And missing link is because it is something that is a lot of companies do not have or lacking, right? So then the question is that, Franklin, how do companies do that in the past 30, 40 years in terms of manufacturing? Well, the companies do it with paper, pen and paper, right? As I mentioned just now, it's totally analog, it's paper-based. People write, or maybe operators write information on the paper, and then somebody, normally the clerks will key it into Excel or maybe to an ERP system, and then somebody will digest the information, make graphs or charts or tables, whatever it is, or report, and then produce it, give it to the managers, the leaders, and by the time the managers get it, it's like 1 day or 2 days later, right? So it is not real time, and this is where actually across the globe, not only in Indonesia or maybe in Southeast Asia, a lot of companies are still not utilizing MES. And I'm very passionate about MES because I'm just to share a little bit. Back then, when I was a process engineer working in Batam back in 1994 to 1999, in the second year, we actually already had a MES system. We didn't call it MES; we call it shop floor control system. But the 6, I can control my machines, right, from my hometown, from my house, using a 56 kilobyte modem, using the fixed telephone line, right? So some of you may be too young to know what modem is, but that was back then. We already had it. We developed in house, and then in year 2000. When I moved to a different company, I didn't see anything, in terms of shop floor management system. I don't know how the WIP is. I don't know where the output is. I don't know what the yield is. I need to get and wait for data or report from my guys. And I decided to actually develop my own MES, right? So it is actually not a very new thing. The technology has been there, but of course the technology back then 20 years ago and now changed a lot, right? Now the technology is more advanced and more people are aware of what MES is and the gain in terms of productivity that MES can give. And this is where I think the missing link that a lot of companies, Indonesia, Southeast Asia, or even around the globe need to embark on, because this is where there's a lot of productivity improvement, productivity benefits that a lot of companies can take on, right? So this is again one area that would be certainly one of the focus area that everybody should look into, right? So what we in OPEX recommend when you want to implement certain solution, certain technology, whether it's ERP, MES, RPA, or even robotics or whatever it is, right? What we recommend is basically to have these 4 stages of approach, 4-stage approach. The first stage is about assessment. Basically, you look into the as-is business processes. You look into all the organization. You look into the system that you have, the technology that you have. You understand the pain points. You understand the gaps, and then from there you move on to the second step, right? Which is to look into, okay, what are the things that we can improve, right? Can we improve the process, make it more streamlined, use Lean Six Sigma to improve that, and so on and so forth. Then from there, you understand what your requirements are. Then you move into selecting technology or the solutioning stage before you do the implementation. A lot of companies do not do these first 2 steps, okay? A lot of companies jump to technology solutions or even jump partially into selecting technology and then implement that. And then at the end of the day, face a lot of problems. I wouldn't say that even if you follow these 4 stages, you'll be perfect. No, right? But these first 2 stages will help companies, will help you in order to increase the success rate of implementation of technology solutions. Okay, and on the assessment, since we are Lean Six Sigma company as well, when we promote Lean Six Sigma, we use Lean Six Sigma to do assessment. We use the methodology, the concept of that to do assessment. But in this case, we also utilize or combine it with what we call it as SIRI, or Smart Industry Readiness Index. So what is Siri, right? Siri actually started in Singapore. That was back in 2017, and last year, initially it was for manufacturing in Singapore, and then last year they brought it up to the international level, to the World Economic Forum, and then I think it's going international at the moment. They are promoting Siri now globally, and there are companies out of outside Singapore that are already doing Siri assessment. So what it does, so actually all this information Siri that you can find it in www.siri.gov.sg. There are white papers over there you can download. You can look into the YouTube to search for the Siri, and then the prioritization metrics and all stuff. Information are available out there. I wouldn't go into the detail of that, but I would like to bring you to the next slide. Ooh, okay, all right. What Siri in a nutshell is, right? So basically Siri, there are 3 building blocks, right? Is again the same thing that I mentioned just now, is the business process, the technology, and the people side or the organization. Then under that, there are 8 pillars, right? In terms of the operations, supply chain, product life cycle, automation, connectivity, intelligence, and then talent readiness and structure and management. Then under the 8 pillars, there are 16 dimensions, right? Basically, there will be 16 areas or dimensions that will be assessed, right? So based on the assessment, it will give you certain scoring. I'll talk about that later on, but we combine it with Lean because Lean really look into a little bit more details into how in terms of gaps, or what are the gaps are there, and then can we eliminate the waste? What are the wastes, right? What are the variations in the processes that we need to improve? So we use Lean Six Sigma, and then we combine it with Siri, and that actually helps the entire assessment for a company that wants to embark on digital transformation. So the output will be, there will be a assessment result, assessment matrix result, and then it will basically tell you what are the 4 areas or 4 dimensions you need to focus on, right? So when we talk about that later on, we talk about, okay, where do I start, or how do I start, or which area should I start? This assessment actually helps company to look into which of the area I need to focus on or I need to prioritize, right? And then you will get comparison. You'll get also how it compares with the industry sector. For example, you are in automotive, right? How does it compare to your peers in automotive? You are in, for example, in food and beverage, or you are in FMCG industry. How does it compare to the industry of the same, your peers in the same industry? And then we'll give you basically the gaps, right? We tell you what the gaps are, again, for the business processes, the people, and the technology. And then what are the recommendations for improvement? We recommend, we will prescribe what are the roadmaps, what are the blueprints you need to have. So based on all those things, for example, we look into the technology side. So, and then we recommend, okay, this is your business processes, this is your business model, what kind of solutions you need. There are a bunch of solutions out there. There are many vendors out there, but not everybody will need the same solutions or need every solutions, right? Then we tell them, okay, based on what we see, based on the gaps that you have, based on your vision and mission of the company, these are the solutions you need to have, right? And then so we basically prescribe the business solutions, the roadmap, and also the blueprint. So one example that we did for our client is that we provide a 3-year system improvement roadmap. So it tells them these are the processes that you have. These are the areas, right? The areas that we will recommend for you to take on, right? There are different phases. For example, phase 1 is the blue ones. These are the priority number 1s. Next, you look into the green ones, right? These are the priority number 2, right? And so on and so forth. So that's an example of the roadmap that we prescribe to our client. Again, we don't talk about technology only. but we look into the entire organization. We look into what the vision and mission, the goals and objective of the company. How does the company move to a business excellence, right? What are the programs needed? What are the trainings needed? Whether it's soft skill training, whether it's a hard skill training, and how does it relate to the entire organizational design and the career path or career development? Does the company have it or not? So we look into a very comprehensive way how the company should and it should be improving. Okay, and then we say, okay, you know where to start, right? You know which technology or which solutions you need to adopt, right? And then we say, okay, what about the future? Right, from here, let's say I do it for the next 3 years, and where do I stand? What do I do after 3 years? As I mentioned earlier, it is a journey. It's an actually infinite journey, right? So there are two ways to look at it, right? So in terms of scalability, in terms of future, how do I go from here? There are two ways to look at it. The first one is what is called the vertical integration, right? This is actually similar to the ISA 95 framework that I mentioned just now. You look internally within your company, within the internal company and internal processes, right? And then, then what are the things that you need to start looking at, right? So when we talk about MOM, right, we talk about MES that I mentioned here, right? We talk about business planning and logistics, that is still in the ERP context, for example. And like it or not, these are the areas that if I speak for Indonesia, for example, a lot of companies are lacking, right? A lot of companies are facing the situation that, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years, pen and paper. I have even one previous client that still use multi-plan. I don't know whether you are old enough to know what multi-plan is, right? Multi-plan is actually the predecessor of Lotus 123, and Lotus 123 is the predecessor of Excel spreadsheet, right? So that was back, the first time I used multi-plan is like 1988, right? You can imagine 1988. Some companies are still using Windows 95, right? We are in Windows 10 now, but the company is still using Windows 95, right? So how do you move from that kind of very backward situation to something and take a leapfrog? You can't, right? So you need to take steps. It has to be gradual. So this is where the whole integration vertically is needed. Then after that, what we recommend is look into what is called as horizontal integration. So not only within the company, or maybe with your distributor, with your supplier, with your customer, right? So we have, I think, various companies in Indonesia, for example, but I think it is also similar in Singapore and elsewhere in Southeast Asia, at least, that, for example, invoice from a supplier, you want to charge your customer, how is it done? Well, it's done with paper, right? So somebody still bring the whole stack of invoice and then bring it as a courier, bring it physically to one company, and it will get chopped, stamped, and then somebody will process it manually and all stuff, right? And maybe somebody will scan it, send it through emails and all stuff, right? And when you end up, or when you process only like 10, 50 invoices a month, that is fine, right? No need technology. But you are processing thousands, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 invoices a month. You can imagine how that is very tedious job that can be resolved better with digital transformation or with digitalization technology, right? So that's the next stage after you take care of your vertical integration. Then you look into the horizontal integration, right? So you talk about maybe other factories in different places, different locations, right? Or different countries and so on and so forth. Okay, so what are the key factors that are important to have a successful digital transformation? So the first and foremost, I would say, is a change of mindset, right? So if we have people in the organization that have a fixed mindset, right? Oh, I've tried it before, it always failed. I guess my ability is just limited, right? Or I've done it in the past, it didn't work. Oh, I have tried it many times. Now I give up. Or I've done this for 20 years. I will stick to that. I'm not going to change. These are fixed mindset, and that is the biggest problem in digital transformation. And the reason for that is very clear, right? Because mindset is the hardest to change, right? You can adopt technology, right? You can change the business processes. You can change the layout of the production, for example, or the standard operating procedure of a financial transaction. But the mindset of the people are the hardest and take the longest time, to change, right? You can't tell them, you better change, you better change, you better change. It won't work, right? So you need to have a change management program, right? That without you telling the person to change, the person will be brought forward and change, right? So that is, I think the growth mindset is what is required. And this is one of the, I would say, the biggest factor in determining whether it's going to be a successful or a failed digital transformation. Next, we talk about digitalization, right? So I hope you know what the differences are, and we'll talk about how to capture data. So the data acquisition or data capturing method is very important, right? There is barcode, there's QR code, there's RFID, there are multiple or different sensors you can use. There are digital equipment that already Industry 4.0 ready, right? Can interface with the different software, different platforms, for example. We'll talk about industrial IoT, which is now also very popular globally, right? And of course, the manufacturing execution system also, right? So there are different ways to look into how to capture the data, and that will be the first step in the whole digital transformation as well, other than the mindset, is how to digitize the data so that it becomes from analog to digital. All right. So the business processes need to be streamlined, right? So when we talk about manufacturing, for example, you have the business plan or the annual operating plan. You have the demand forecast that you get from your salespeople or from the customers, and then you translate it to operations plan. You get translate to the production scheduling, and then down to all the way to the execution, right? You produce it, you ship it, you get delivery done, you invoice the customer, and then you get paid, right? Sounds wonderful, sounds simple, right? So, but in reality, this ideal process flow is not like that. The ideal state would be probably like this, right? I need to take off my glasses here because I can't see. All right, but it starts, business plan, or the sales people may bypass you, and then the boss said, oh, no, you change the plan, I want you to produce this. And then from there, people from downside, from the shop floor, give different feedback, talk to the director or owner, and it's all over the place. Planner complain, finance complain, procurement complain, and it's all over the place, right? In reality, you actually, the right side here is more of the reality you find commonly in manufacturing, right? And that's the reason I always tell people that in manufacturing, there's no day without problem. If there is a single day that there is a problem, there's no problem, I would question. So I used to manage regionally. I used to manage companies that are located in different countries. So, for example, when I visit them, for example, from Singapore, I travel for a day trip to a Batam factory, and then I ask, hey, how are you? Apa kabar? Right? Very good, Pak. Okay, good. How is production? Oh, no problem, Pak. Okay, Pak. Okay. I get worried when that was the response, right? I get very worried because I know every day there's always a problem in manufacturing, right? So I get worried because that kind of in innovation, what do you call it? ABS, ABS, asal bapak senang, right? It is very worrying. It actually, it may it may cover underlying problems that are not surfaced out in time and become a time bomb, become a crisis later on. So that's the reality, right? So we need to streamline the business processes, and there are ways, there are programs to do that. Standardization, I'll do very quickly here. Standardization is very important. You need to standardize. And the reason for that is because AI and machine learning technology are not matured yet. Prior to this, we had some small talk with BMO and David as well. That you have AI and machine learning maybe for chatbot, right? But the rest, in terms of manufacturing, they are is starting, but it's not matured yet. So standardization or standard work, standard process is very important. Automation, for example, whether you're talking about automated conveyor or you talk about robotic, it does not work well with varying scenarios. It works well with something that is standard. You do it over and over and over and over again. Same thing, right? It works well. But the moment it has, or it's slightly different, or it's a different mix, or a slightly different specification, then the whole automation may fall apart, right? Process variation means is cost. The higher the variation, it means you have to do more variety. You have to cater for all the scenarios. You may need a more sophisticated technology, and that means cost. And therefore, when we talk about ROI, break-even point, right, it's not attractive anymore, because the cost of the technology or the investment is very high. So in order to bring it down and yet still have the same productivity expected, you need to reduce the process variation. Okay. All right. I'm having problem looking at this. Give me a second. Move this. Okay. Now, when we talk about technology, yes, there is limitation, but the bigger problem is actually not really on the technology being immature. The bigger problem, as no surprise, because I mentioned this, is on the business process in terms of the waste elimination. You want to streamline the process, reduce the variation. You need to have continuous improvement program, in the company, for everybody to work on continuous improvement. The people side, as I mentioned, changing the mindset of the people, the culture. If it's a bad culture, if it's good culture, no problem. But if it's a bad culture, unproductive culture or habit, is very hard to change. And this is where there is a need for a very thorough gap analysis. There is a need for a very structured training program. There's a need for a change management program, right, to address all these people-related issues in order for the digital transformation to be successful. Those are the bigger challenges, right? So why, maybe some of you ask, okay, I know you Lean Six Sigma, but why use Lean Six Sigma in this approach, right? So WEF, World Economic Forum, one of the biannually report they released in 2016 is something that I like very much. Of course, there are newer reports that you can find in the internet, but back in 2016, these are the 10 points, 10 areas they think that future generations should have, right? And if you look into all of this, none of this is talking about hard skill. It's all talking about soft skill, from complex problem solving, whether it's about critical thinking, creativity, all the way to cognitive flexibility, right? Or cognitive flexibility basically is ability to choose different tools, different weapons, different methodology, right? So different tools are available. How do you choose the right tool, whether it's a missile or whether it's a gun to address a problem, right? So when you look into the whole Lean Six Sigma concept, it actually maps out nicely, right? When we talk about complex problem solving, well, in Six Sigma, we teach systematic problem solving. When we talk about critical thinking, well, in Lean Six Sigma, we teach about how to be critical to status quo, challenge the status quo, right? And we, of course, all the way to number 10, we teach. There are different multiple tools in Lean Six Sigma, and we teach our clients the people, right, the trainees, how to use the multiple tools, when you use this tool and when you use that tool, right? So that's basically why we use Lean Six Sigma to complement or to help us in the digital transformation journey. So when is the right time to start? Right? When's the right time to start? I think that's a question maybe everybody will have, you know. And this picture, I took this from a newspaper clipping in Straits Times, Singapore newspaper, back in June 2020. As you can see, this is a paper newspaper, right? So, you know, Franklin, why are you still so backward reading a newspaper or reading news on a paper-based newspaper? Yeah, I have, or at least I had a soft spot for newspaper. I just had to have the newspaper on my hand, you know, all the different pages and then flipping it and all the stuff, right? But you know, not long after June 2020, around July or August, I decided to go all digital. So no more newspaper. And there are two reasons. One, because it saves the forest, it saves paper, right? Number two is because I can do a clipping or news clipping better, right? Rather than taking a picture of this, I have a better way. But anyway, keep that aside. When's the right time to start? And this article basically talks about that you know, how COVID-19 accelerate the whole industry 4.0 revolution. It talks about that you know, digital transformation is an infinite journey, right? There'll be a new system, there'll be disruptions coming on, and companies just have to adopt, have to adapt, right? And at the end of the day, the journey starts with us today, right? Not after the COVID-19 crisis, but today, right? And again, the whole pandemic accelerates the whole digital transformation. A lot of companies all over the world are looking into ways how to be more digitally transformed or digitally ready. So maybe some people will ask, can I say no to digital transformation, right? So I would answer this, you know, with this copy of an advertisement in I think this is in UK back in 19th century. Okay, it talks about horse versus car versus automobile, right? So basically it says, if you own automobile, a car, you need to spend on gasoline, you need to spend money on repairs, maintenance, storage, blah, blah, blah. And then you compare it with the Dobbin. Dobbin is basically a horse. I don't know why they call it Dobbin, but Dobbin is a horse. You compare with feeding a horse in a year, and definitely feeding a horse in a year will cost less than having a automobile, right? So there is all this distractor, all these those guys that really resist to technology, and history tells us, right, you know, the whole industrial revolution take place after that, fly off, and you know, people are not using horses anymore for obvious reasons, right? So I think it will be the same, right? The whole industry 4.0 and the whole digital transformation, you like it or not, you want to object to that, you resist, whatever it is, it will continue, right? It's unstoppable. Next slide. Competition is going to be tougher than ever, as I mentioned. You know, companies like, you know, not only in developed countries, but even in you know, developing countries are adopting digital transformation and digital technology. So I would like to maybe ask if anybody can just unmute. Let me ask you this picture. Where is this picture taken? So obviously it's a car manufacturing. Anybody can make a guess where this picture was taken?
Japan.
Japan?
Toyota?
Maybe Toyota? Anybody else? Anybody
Tesla.
else? Sorry?
Tesla.
Maybe Tesla? Okay. Any other guesses?
It's a Korean automotive manufacturer.
Korean
Franklin,
automotive company, maybe in Korea. Okay. Last guess.
Apple. Europe.
Maybe in
Automotive
Europe, right? Maybe
manufacturing.
in Germany.
Because the robot is ABB.
right? ABB and other stuff. But guess what? This is not Tesla.
China.
This is not China. This is not Japan. This is not Europe. This is not United States. This is actually in Vietnam. Okay. Have you heard about a company called VinFast? You can Google it, right? VinFast, I think it was 2 years ago. Within less than 2 years, they came out and built the first fully digital automotive factory in Southeast Asia. Now, when we talk about automotive in Southeast Asia, Thailand is number one. Okay, in terms of export, in terms of the output of the annual number of cars, in terms of the technology, where Thailand is number one. Indonesia is number two. Okay, and here is VinFast from a country that just came out from war maybe a few decades ago. They want to become the Southeast Asia leading vehicle manufacturer. And they are not worried, they are not afraid of adopting digital transformation, adopting digital solutions, right? So it's a company that probably unheard of, right? I heard this, I read this article last year. You know, it's not even a year ago. It's less than a year ago, and it's amazing, right? This company really invests and they want to be the leader. So how can the rest of the companies, in this case in automotive industry, say, "Oh, I'm okay, I'm profitable. I don't need to invest in digital transformation. I don't need to embark on that." For sure, you'll lose out, right? So that's a message I'm trying to show here, that is not the developed countries alone, but developing countries, new players in the industry are going all out with digital transformation to beat the competition. Okay. So, okay, time for another poll. All right. I'll let Bimo roll out the poll. Basically, regardless of your industry, the question is that regardless of your industry, where does your company stand in terms of digital transformation journey? Have you not started at all, or probably have just started, in the beginning stage, or you are already in the middle of it, in progress already, or you are already perfect or near perfect, you're already digitally transformed? So maybe we take 30 seconds. Okay, I think everybody already hold and appreciate it. Bimo, if you can show the result.
Okay, Frank, I will share the result.
Okay, very good, thank you. So it's very interesting. So majority is already in the middle of it. Yeah, you already started the digital transformation for some time. And then second to that, you just started. And then equally, those that have not started at all and those that already digitally. So let's keep this result, and maybe during Q&A, those that are in the middle of it, right? And also the one that already.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. In the middle there, this is where a lot of variation, right? For example, when we talk about automotive, right? The OEM or the brand owner, whether it's Toyota, Daihatsu, Suzuki, right? And all other automotive makers, they are pretty high in terms of the digital adoption, and they are quite ahead already in terms of digital transformation, right? Toyota, for example, not only they are ahead in terms of digital transformation, but they are also a very disciplined company. They already implemented a Toyota production system, TPS, for like 50 over years, right? In terms of lean, they are very good. In terms of Kaizen, they are very good. So that really helps them in order to embark and roll out, their journey in digital transformation. But the second tier, the tier one, is less. That means all those suppliers that provide components to the OEM, they are less in their journey, and some of them just started. Some of them, like I said, still haven't started. Right? When you talk about tier two of the suppliers, the supply base is even worse. Right? So that's so it varies a lot. Depending on which tier you are in. The agriculture, right? For example, in palm oil is pretty backward. Yeah, they're probably one of the industry at the bottom, right? In terms of farming, palm oil, whether it's tea plantation, rubber plantation, they are quite backward in terms of digital transformation, right? So then the rest basically are in between, right? So there are varying degree of digital transformation depending on the industry. All right. So I'll just point out some of the examples, in terms of some, I'll bring you down to the more the reality of ground, right? So when we talk about digital transformation in manufacturing, we don't want to talk about very, sophisticated that may not be touching, the ground level, right? So I would not talk about AI and machine learning, for example. I'll talk more about, do you have ERP, right? Do you have MES, and do you know what APS is, right? ERP, for example, people know SAP, Oracle, Epicor, Microsoft Dynamics, Info, and all those stuff, right? Odoo, right? MES, then people start, okay, I do not know who has it, right? Definitely we can say Siemens has one of the strongest, or if not the strongest, MES offering for different industries, right? For pharmaceutical, discrete, automotive, medical device, life science, process, chemical, and all the stuff, right? So they have it. When we talk about APS, advanced production and scheduling, right? This is where people said, okay, what is APS again? Or what's the differences between planning and scheduling, right? So this is where a number of educations are needed, basically, okay, to say, okay, what is APS, how that relates with ERP and MES, and what is the, how does it help me to manage my resources better, to improve production better, my productivity better, how to utilize the capacity better, and all stuff, right? So these are the one example. Definitely is really touching the ground. A lot of productivity opportunities over here in order to when you have and you integrate the ERP, APS, and MES, right? In IoT, very popular. Everybody talk about IoT, trying to have IoT not only in the factory, maybe at home, maybe everywhere, right? But there are different customizations, different levels of IoT applications needed. For example, one of the client that we implemented IoT is basically to monitor the coolant, right? Coolant monitoring system for the CNC machines. That can be done with a digital sensor for the pH, for the concentration. And then after that, you can have basically the data available in the maintenance dashboard and so on and so forth. That can be done. So that's one example. The other example that is multi or cross industry is RPA. So RPA is basically not a handwritten document, a handwritten invoice, for example. RPA, for example, or processing the medical claims to complement that with digitalization. So again, anything can be RPA, right? Whether it's in the finance area, in the supply chain, in the IT sector, even in the HR, you talk about administration of the benefits, you can do that. customer service, you want to gather information from a chatbot, for example, that all can be done with RPA. But again, there are some limitations, and there's always digitalizations that is needed. Okay, so as 2 more slides. So as a closing, begin today. Right, so we talk about digital transformation, right? So what it is, and especially in manufacturing and maybe non-manufacturing, what digital transformation entails. But the time to start it is really now. Don't delay, don't wait, because the competition is out there to beat you, and for sure they can beat you when you are not competitive and you are not digitally transformed. Understand and assess and understand your current situation. You cannot just buy a software off the shelf without knowing and understanding what your needs are or what your requirements are. Set the strategy and roadmap, right? So you know what the strategy is, what's the current, what's the midterm, and what's the long term. And then you get help to set up a roadmap to achieve your blueprints, to achieve your goals in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, or even longer term. So you set the strategy. You prioritize and focus on quick wins. And this is important because when you set long-term strategy, you need to get all the people to be on board with you, right? So you need to convince them. And one of the way to convince them is you have quick wins, right? So that raises the confidence level, but it's also giving the sense of it really works to help me do my work, right? So that kind of convincing is needed, and that is achieved when you prioritize and then you focus on quick wins. You track the progress, right? You track the progress and you reevaluate the strategy. You reevaluate the blueprint, or even the roadmap, yeah. Because you don't want to have one roadmap and then you say, okay, the next 10 years, I'm not going to change it. Let's stick it to that. Yeah. The reason for that is not good, that you need to reevaluate, because the blueprint or the roadmap will never be perfect, number one, right? So you need to make some adjustments, some fine tuning. Number two, technology evolves, right? So what you think it works now, maybe 2 years later, there's a new technology that replaces that technology, and you have to steer the company to adopt this different technology. So you need to make change. You need to reevaluate and then change the strategy or the roadmap accordingly. So that's the closing. Before we, it's 8:20, 9:20 in Singapore. Before we go to Q&A, I have I think it's less than a minute video clip, yeah, about the manufacturing and then digital transformation in manufacturing in particular, and how that actually evolves quickly and become a revolution. And the future is not that far off; it's actually near, and it gets nearer with all this COVID-19 and pandemic. So let's see whether it plays well.
What improves the quality of our lives, connects us and keeps us safe, gets us to the bottom of the ocean and into outer space? Human-centered manufacturing, turning tomorrow's designs and raw materials into transformative products today. It's powered by Siemens Accelerator, a comprehensive suite of software using breakthrough technologies such as additive manufacturing, advanced robotics, and artificial intelligence. It makes digital machine shops and self-organizing factories a reality. Accelerator connects everyone through IoT, apps, and manufacturing networks, transforming businesses from startups to global companies into digital enterprises. Human-centered manufacturing doesn't just increase the speed of innovation, it saves lives, advances societies, and fosters a brighter future for all of us.
Okay. So like I said, it's a short video clip, basically encapsulates the technology used in manufacturing and how that changed the way we work and how companies compete and affects the lives of many people. So that basically ends the session today. I hope everybody enjoys and learn something from the webinar. Thank you. Bimo, back to
Okay.
you.
Yeah. Thank you, Franklin, for the session. And we would like to have a question and answer. And I have one question, Franklin, from
Sure.
me. Basically, we follow this process from the beginning, assessment, and then process improvement, technology selection, and implementation. But let's say the factory itself is not a new one. It's an existing, even maybe the old factory. And on the technical level, there are old system, old equipment, maybe analog system on the technical level for the control and everything. So is there any typical pattern, which area we should start to transform into digital system? Because all this equipment costs a lot of capital for modification. And should we start from top, from the ERP, or we start from somewhere in the middle? What is your opinion and experience, Franklin?
It is a very good question, Bimo. And in fact, that is the struggle a lot of manufacturing companies are facing, right? So they end up with a varying degree of technology or machines, right? From 20 years ago, from all the way to maybe the latest. So where do I start, right? Before we talk about what system, what solutions you need, right? Just to mention that the old machines, there are ways to retrofit it, right? To have some sensors, for example, to start tracking your OEE, right? OEE stands for overall equipment effectiveness, for example. But it may not be a full OEE, for example, right? Because you can track the output, you can track the cycle time, but you may not be able to track the quality of the product. So, the older the equipment are, the less information or data you can gather. So I think that's the general rule of thumb, right? But of course, when you are newer machines, let's say less than 10 years old, or is industry 4.0 ready, you can get a lot of data information from that. Going back to your questions, whether where do I start? Or do I start with the ERP and all those things, right? So this is where it is important to understand the business processes, right? So for example, where we want to say where the biggest pain points are, right? Where the biggest opportunity to improve, where you want to place your dollar or investment. Yeah, so easy to say, okay, maybe it's ERP. Why? Oh, because everybody is using ERP, right? Everybody is using SAP, Oracle, Epic, or whatever it is, right? But that may not be true. In general, yes, but maybe for certain industry, that may not be the biggest area to invest in terms of digital transformation. This is where we need to take a look into the whole assessment, not only to understand the gap or to analyze the gaps, but also understand and align with the vision and mission of the company, right? So, for example, there are clients that say, okay, I have my current factory, yes, it is not in a very good state. It's old and old stuff. But I have a plan to invest in a new factory, that means a greenfield, in 2 years' time. So we need to understand that, right? So then we'll say, okay, if that is the plan, then let's start working on it towards that. You don't want to do ERP, for example, maybe 2 years later, but maybe you want to start it now, or maybe a little bit 1 year before the new factory comes in, right? So you basically help them. We can help them to look into the whole prioritization again, where to start. And there is a framework, the series framework I mentioned, that helps companies where to prioritize, and those are aligned with their KPIs, with their short-term and long-term goals and objectives. I hope that answers, Bill.
It's broadly answered my confusion, Franklin, actually.
Okay.
Because I have an old factory last time.
Yeah, I mean, old factory or brownfield is always challenging. Greenfield is easy, right? Brownfield is always challenging, but there are ways or methodology to approach that. And unfortunately, there's no one solution fits all, right? Different company, we may prescribe different solutions.
Yeah, and coming back to the key factors, Franklin, for this transformation process, and I think it's a technical process and also business process, technology, and operation and people. For this aspect, people, there is a question here in the chat room. How do we engage people in manufacturing so they are willing to accept and execute this transformation? Because transformation will bring transparency, inventory, and everything, and not all people will like this new situation. And actually, I have experienced that one company start from top, from the ERP, and the shop floor is basically still existing process, and seems that the people accept but not actually implement it. So there's a resistance. And how do we manage this people factor?
Yeah. So this is there are a couple of ways to approach that. Number one, it's always important to have management or leadership support, right? If management doesn't even believe in digital transformation and it becomes bottoms up approach, it won't work. It may work, but it's very hard or very difficult or extremely difficult, right? So number one, there has to be support from the leadership, but support not only only saying that they are supporting, but they must show with the budget to support. They must show with the resources and even their time, to support the whole transformation. Now, when it comes to how do we bring the entire workforce? This is where there are a number of ways to do that, but one of the approach is really to use Lean Six Sigma, right? And why Lean Six Sigma is because Lean Six Sigma basically educate the workforce and getting them involved. For example, I think those in manufacturing, you're familiar with SGA, small group activities, right? So it's involving actually the operator levels, the technicians level, to understand what continuous improvement is. They understand the basic tools to do that, and then they start doing it in their own area and around them. And by doing that, they say, yeah, actually it helps me to do my work better. Last time I have to work on and off very far away. Now I don't have to do that, right? So I can do more efficiently. I can do more output, higher output than before. It gives satisfaction to them also. But reaching out to them or involving them is not saying that you have to improve, you have to improve, you have to improve. It won't work, right? But by showing them, by engaging them, for example, in one of our training in Lean Six Sigma, we involve them how to make cars with Lego blocks, right? So they use it and say, okay, that's interesting. It's simulation, but I can see how you can use certain tools to improve the cycle time of how to make a product, right? So it's a starting point, right? It's a starting point, and then from there, okay, you say, okay, why don't you, make a small group of 5 people. I will help you. I will, coach you, and then how to improve, right? The improvement may not be hard saving of millions of dollars or billions of rupiah, right? But it may not be something intangible, but the whole process actually helps them to see and to realize what it takes to be involved in the whole transformation. And this is where, as I mentioned earlier, this is where it takes time, right? You cannot change for example, a company with 3,000, 4,000 employees. You can't change that overnight. You can't bring them and tell them or give them in a lecture that then say, go and change. It won't work, right? So this is where it takes time, and the more employees you have, the longer it will take time to bring them involved in the whole digital transformation.
Okay, seems that's a tough and complex task to transform the people, frankly. And
it is, but it's doable. It is doable. Yeah.
yeah,
It's not easy. I wouldn't say it's easy. It's complex. Yeah.
and is it easier to focus on the technology or the equipment rather than the people? Because many manufacturer or factory, it looks like using jargon 4.0. This is the next question. Using the jargon 4.0 for their program or the project activity, but actually they only buy smart equipment or smart tools.
Yeah.
As a quick shortcut, what do you think, Franklin? What is your experience?
Yeah, I'll tell you one experience. I wouldn't mention the company name, right? But this is one of the supplier for automotive, right? So I met the owner, and then I asked about their process, their production, their technology. So he described to me, oh yeah, we've been trained by the Japanese, for 30 years. So we are pretty good. Okay, good. Do you have ERP? Yeah, I have ERP, but what ERP is that? I'm not sure. I can't remember now. Do you have MES? What MES? What is MES? So I explained about MES, right? And then say, oh, we have robotics already in the company, right, in the factory. So then I asked him, can I visit your factory, right? So I went to visit the factory. It's somewhere in West Jawa, Jawa Barat. And I almost I was surprised. Right? So they have welding robots, robot arms, welding everywhere, right? It's quite impressive, right? But when I asked his team, do you have ERP? Actually, we don't have ERP. They process everything with Excel. Okay. Do you have MES? Definitely no, right? No MES. Then when I tour the factory, even the basic thing like 5S, right? 5S is very poor in terms of safety. There's a lot of safety hazard, right? So I'm not surprised that I'm actually very surprised that the condition is like that, but I'm not surprised that that happens, because that's quite typical, right? A lot of people think that, when I say digital transformation, industry 4.0, it must be something robotic, or like I think the question is something like have the label smart, right? Or maybe I hear that from my golf partner, this is very good, right? And then just implement that. That's not going to work. I can tell you most of the time it will fail, right? So the proper ways is to understand what your business process are, right? How the people, when you implement the technology, can they use it properly, right? What was the journey to reach there, right? So the whole thing is a package. You cannot just buy equipment, buy machines, buy a robot, buy technology, and then implement it and expect it to work. It won't, right? We have seen over and over again, and it will not work that way. And this is where the whole methodology, the whole framework, the whole approach that I talked about just now comes in handy, and that actually to help companies to start and walk the journey in a proper way. Okay.
Okay, I hope that's answered the question, Franklin, from the audience. And then there is also a question for the people. It seems people is very interesting factor. Any suggestion how to keep the workers to make them keep pace with the advancement of digitalization?
Sorry, Ben, can you repeat that again?
Any practice how to keep our workers in pace with the transformation?
I think
Is
really,
the
yeah,
Gen Z,
I'm actually,
which are more, digital savvy for the workers?
So there are multiple trainings need to be prescribed or need to be planned on. In Singapore, for example, we are working with a number of partners, Siemens, and also, for example, in the Polytechnic over here, to come up with a range of different training, right? There are different courses, right? So it has to start from even the people you're going to hire. It starts from the people going to graduate from Polytechnic or from university, right? And the training varies. Some are very technical. You're talking about PLC. You're talking about microcontroller. You're talking about all those hardware and all those software. You're talking about CAD/CAM software and all those stuff, right? Some is a little bit less technical. Some is like how to be a leader in the digital transformation journey. So it's more of a skill set. How to become a better project manager, for example, in a digitalization journey, right? So some of the things you may think I'm a member of PMI, right? So I should know very well about PM work, about the whole project management, right? But to manage a project in a digital transformation, I think it requires a little bit of a different approach, right? So we are trying to equip that not only for the students, for the fresh graduates, but companies that want to embark on digital transformation, they can send their people as well, or their employees to be trained, right? Depending on what the roles are. So this is part and parcel of educating and bring up or upgrading or top grading the employees, and it entails hard and as well as soft skills, right? So it's a comprehensive approach.
Okay, Franklin, talking about upgrading our workforce, there's a question also. As some of the company's staffs, old members, and do not aware of Industry 4.0 or the digital transformation, how can we change their mindset in a short time, since digital transformation shall be implemented due to the COVID pandemic situation? How to change the mindset, especially for the older workforce?
Okay, it's a very good question. I think one of the biggest problem with old members or old employees, right, it's not so much about whether they are tech savvy or not, right? Tech savviness or ability to use certain technology can be trained. Like I mentioned, you can train, right? Even my mother, for example, my mother is 78 years old. She, although it's slow, she knows how to WhatsApp. She knows how to have a video conference now and all those stuff, right? She started with email 20 years ago, and then but slowly adopting to WhatsApp, for example, takes a little bit of time, right? But it can be done. The issue is about, I think it's more than that. It's not about using the technology, but there are non-technical issues, right? So, for example, a lot of employees, and we're talking about maybe the 50s or even some in the 60s, right? They are worried that what is it for me, right? If I do this, if the company is, if I support the company to implement all these solutions, will they retrench me tomorrow, right? So that is, it is a sensitive issue to talk about, but that is something that has to be faced openly and transparently, right? There's no one single solution to address that, right? But if you tell them, or if you give signals that we are going to adopt these solutions, and by the way, after 1 year, you will all be retrenched. That will not work, right? Because the whole digital transformation is not about retrenchment. The whole digital transformation is about doing more, be more competitive with the same number of people. In other words, it's about increasing the productivity, right? So it's a whole. You can see that it is a whole transformation that is not only technically or technologically driven only, but it's the entire culture, the communication. How do you do the change management? What kind of change management program you have? What kind of training program you have, and all those things. And this is where the complexity comes. And like it or not, we are still in the midst of it, right? So I'll be very interested. For example, I mean, those 11% of the poll that say they are already digitally transformed, I will be very interested to if they can share how they do that, to be able to do that. Because I think we are, unless you are in ICT or you are in media or financial sector, right? If you are in other than this industry, I hardly see anybody that's already fully digitally transformed. Don't mention Indonesia, even in Singapore, right? So I think it's still a journey, it's still ongoing, right? So and the reason for that is very clear. It just takes time. You cannot just do it overnight. So I'm not sure whether I answered the questions, or maybe give more questions or problems to that, but that's the reality. Yeah.
Okay, one more question, Franklin, because we are running out of time. On top, there is one question from Arif Prastio. How would this transformation be coordinated project-wise? Because it has to be broken down into achievable steps, into projects. Considering that the scope is massive and maybe the timeline of which is different. And, we have several familiar or well-known frameworks, methodology for transformation, Six Sigma, Lean Six Sigma, and in manufacturing, hosting country. Could we adopt this methodology for this digital transformation, or is there any new frameworks typical to digital process?
Right. So I think apart from what is known for years in terms of Lean Six Sigma or TPM, some company like Toyota, they have their own TPS. Danaher, they have DBS, Danaher Business System, and number of companies come up with their own. But essentially, there are some similarity to Lean Six Sigma. I think the new one is, for example, talking about Agile. Scrum, Scrum approach. Scrum is basically part of Agile, and all this, how this works. Agile, for example, started in software development, but now can be used for even software and hardware and product related. The way I look at it is you can use those, right? You mentioned about Hoshin Kanri, top down, goal deployment metrics and all stuff. It can be used, right? But the last thing you want to have is to confuse your employees, right? You don't want to confuse employees, and then you are not consistent. If you are part of the management, you are leaders of the company, you don't want to confuse your subordinates, right? Today you talk about Lean Six Sigma, tomorrow you talk about something else. 2 years later you talk about Agile, you talk about everything. You talk about design thinking, for example, and also you don't want to confuse. You need to be consistent. As I mentioned and keep mentioning this, it's a journey. So you pick one. You have to be good at it. If you look into Toyota did not do this for 10 years. They did it for like more than 50 years, right? In terms of TPS, right? When you talk about Lean, people are still learning what Lean is, right? I myself, I've done Lean for 20 over years. I'm still learning, to be honest with you, right? So it is a journey, right? So the short answer to that is yes. You can use all these methodologies that we mentioned, but you need to stick to one or two, and then be good at it, be consistent at it, and then make sure that the entire of the workforce speak the same language, speak the same terminologies, use the same tools. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Franklin.
You're most welcome.
Yeah, it's very valuable insight that you share with us about the digital transformation. And that concludes our session for pranks today. And once again, thank you, Pak Franklin, for your time. I know you are always busy in Singapore and spend time with us for the pranks. And I would like to thank also the audience who joined us in the Zoom and through channel, YouTube channel. And if you enjoy the session, please share the info about this event to your college and also give us feedback. And Franklin, is there any question that the audience can they direct email to you?
Sure. You can email me directly. I think I put it in the. Did I put it in the slide just now? Yeah, franklin@opexdg.com. Feel free to email me. I don't have any questions, but is it possible that we all take a picture, Zoom picture?
Yeah.
Yes, of
We
course.
always take a picture in our prank session.
Okay,
So,
good.
David, could you help with the picture, please?
Yes, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Let's give some time for the participant to open the camera. Okay. By the way, after this event, we will keep opening the room for another 10 until 15 minutes in case you want to have a networking session, you want to say hello with your peer, you want to introduce yourself, or maybe you have a question to PMI Indonesia chapter. We will open the room for a moment. Okay. Okay, I will start taking the picture. We have 4 page.
Cheese.
Cheese. Already take the first one. I'm taking the second one. I'm taking the third one. I'm taking the last one. Okay, many thanks, Franklin. I know
You're
it's
most
already
welcome.
very late
Thank
in
you.
Singapore, already 10 p.m. now. Thank you for
It's
sharing
okay.
your...
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Franklin, for your time.
You're welcome. And I'll stay on for another 5-10 minutes if anybody just want to network and chit chat. Feel free.
Okay.